So maybe I can combine two questions in one that involve an area that you have spoken about and so many leaders from ASEAN talk about now, which is the dispute, the tensions, whatever we want to call them, between the United States and China. You spoke about the impact. I believe you said, of course, we have been impacted. You also said you never want to choose sides. Could you elaborate a little bit on the choosing of sides? Are there times when you feel that, as they say, when elephants fight, the United States and China, what are the difficulties that you face, and do you not sometimes feel the need to choose sides one way or the other?
Yes. Okay. สำหรับความตึงเครียดระหว่างสหรัฐและจีน
As for the tensions between the United States and China and whether it has an effect on Thailand, this is an interesting matter. Thailand accords great importance and interest to this issue. Ever since there was a first joint meeting, second joint meeting, third joint meeting, and fourth joint meeting, we hope that these will become successful in order to alleviate the effects of the trade tensions, which are affecting not only the US and China, but also other countries as well. So our way of thinking is that there should be an amicable way out that occurs as soon as possible, since both these countries are long-standing and close allies of Thailand, and the conflict between major powers is something that can happen. However, the United States and China do have cooperation in many areas, like counter-narcotics, counter-terrorism, non-proliferation of nuclear weapons, and so these are all good areas of cooperation. However, the economic issues have an effect on people in many countries. So my hope is that there is an amicable means of solving the trade tensions. I don't think that choosing sides is the correct way of putting it. I don't like this phraseology because we don't have sides. We are all on the same side. All of us are in the same boat, and we can't leave each other behind. Therefore, as for the conflict between these two countries, there's an impact on the supply chain and value chain of the entire world. However, in the bigger picture, Thailand's export to the US and China has increased, even though there have been these retaliatory trade measures. So don't reduce my exports to the US. Make sure that it continuously increases. And however, in the first 7 months, Thailand's exports were reduced by 16.3%, and our exports to China decreased by 8.24%. So our exports in the first 7 months decreased to both countries. Take care of this as well. And the baht is strengthening. Since our current account surplus is higher, we're gaining a lot of revenue from tourism. So we don't want our foreign reserves to accumulate without reciprocal investment in Thailand. A high current account surplus isn't always positive. It might lead to stagnation and less investment. Currently, our foreign reserves is valued at $200 billion. So if you times that into baht, it's a huge volume. We're one of the top countries when it comes to foreign reserves, and it can be a reserve for debt, for loans. However, we're retaining it for stability. I think that these trade tensions will not benefit anyone, so I want these two countries and all related parties to find a way out. In terms of the transfer of investment bases from China to Thailand, I don't think that it's me giving places especially to China for investment. We have spaces for every single country on an equitable basis. It can be China, it can be the United States, and there are the same standards for all countries. Our Board of Investment Regulations cover all countries with the same standard. They're not targeted at just China, just the US. This is Thailand's principle of equity. And now we have a BOI committee that is increasing incentives, reducing red tape, and facilitating businesses even more. The US ABC meets with me every single year. I know the president of the US ABC well, and I always address his concerns and solve the problems that he requests. So they're very ready to invest in Thailand. Thailand is always ready to accommodate their investment under our regulatory framework. As for the influence of China in the region, is it possible for me to answer all of your questions at once?
Just one quick follow-up, Prime Minister, because I think I've read about this and you've just alluded to it quickly. Is there actually an opportunity in the tensions? Is there some good news for Thailand? I see you have, there's a program now to offer what they call relocation packages for a company that is in China come to Thailand. So is there some good news as the elephants fight for your country?
อันนี้เรื่องไม่จริงนะไม่จริงอะทุกประเทศอะไรเขาเรียกอะไรอะไรนะที่เราเรียกว่า Thailand Plus เนี่ยคือเดิมเนี่ย BOI เนี่ยให้มาแล้ว
We have a Thailand Plus package, and we apply the same standards to all countries. For instance, reduction of income tax by 8%. However, I don't have particular regulations appertaining to Chinese investment. So whoever decides to invest in our country, they have to adhere to the same regulations. If they're interested in our tax deductions, then they have to undergo the same tax deductions. The problem isn't only related to geography, but it's also related to wages, it's also related to the availability of land and the quality of infrastructure. Thailand is sometimes more ready, so there's a transfer of greater investment. The US shouldn't be concerned about this. If the US are interested, that I might give you a plus 3 package. Next, please.
Thank you for that. By the way, just to be clear, Prime Minister, I can't do anything about exports in my current capacity or any capacity. A question about your chairmanship of ASEAN and then also our president, Donald Trump. As you mentioned, the summit will be in early November. It is not at all clear that President Trump will go to Bangkok. You may know more than we know.
Okay.
How important is it? You have said on occasion that the United States needs to pay more attention to ASEAN. How important is it for President Trump to come to Bangkok in November?
ผมคิดว่าในเมื่อประธานาธิบดีทรัมป์เนี่ยเป็นผู้ที่บุคคลที่มีชื่อเสียงเป็นผู้นำประเทศมหาอำนาจ
I think that President Trump is someone of renown, is an important person in the international arena. Therefore, his attendance of any sort of framework is a way of elevating that framework, and people will be able to see his vision and the direction of the United States as well as his leadership role. So I think that if he is able to attend, then it will be good for Thailand and good for ASEAN, since this is the policy of the US with its turn to Asia policy, and ASEAN is at the core of that. So if he's able to attend, would be highly pleased. Yesterday, he said to me, "Sawadee, I miss you, and I recall you very well. I have very warm feelings towards Thailand, and I'd very much like to visit Thailand." This is what he said yesterday at the reception, but it's up to him. I know he's got a lot of engagements, so if he can, then it will be an honor for Thailand and for the 10 ASEAN countries between the 1st and the 4th of November. And if he's able to attend as an official visit, then that would be even better. So it's up to him, but I hope he decides positively.
But he didn't commit.
ก็ท่านขึ้นอยู่กับเวลาของท่านไง
It depends on his timing. He says that there are several engagements on the US, so it depends whether or not he can make it within the program that he has. But please help us, please support his attendance of.
We will do what we can. I'll leave it at that. One other issue as we follow the events in your country, Prime Minister, and in a way this is very similar to issues we have here in America, and that is, I guess the right word is polarization. We have very close elections in this country.
Yep.
We have anger in the Congress. You have big debates in Parliament. Social media, nasty campaigns in both countries. And it seems it's fair to say, certainly here it's fair to say, people on either sides are kind of stuck. that if you believe very strongly here. As Prime Minister, first of all, do you agree that that's kind of the circumstance inside Thailand? And as Prime Minister, what do you feel you can do to improve that situation?
สิ่งนี้นะอยากจะบอกไม่ได้เกิด
This is not a matter that stems just from the present age, but it's been ongoing for the 10 past years. And in the 10 past years, there's been the involvement of social media until there's been the twisting of the facts, until we don't know what the true causes of events are. So my standard now is that whatever happens in Thailand, there has to be confidence in the judicial process. No matter who is right or who is wrong, the judicial process has to have priority. There has to be respect for the ruling of judges. Therefore, people who escape the rulings of courts, these are not good people. And you're aware who is evading the judicial process, who is evading the law.
I didn't say that.
ใช่ไหมมันตอบไม่ได้หรอกเพราะฉะนั้นต่างคนต่างก็อ้างกันไปกันมา
And of course, there'll be conflicting views and arguments on both sides. Sometimes these cases are not political cases, but they're criminal cases as well. I've never transgressed the law, and I've always used the legal framework and the judicial process to solve the problems. I've acted under it. I didn't want to step in to manage the country. A lot of countries have stated that it's illicit to step in like this, but I'd like to ask, in history, has this had to happen for the public good before? It has. Because there was such an extreme problem in Thailand, I had to step in to put an end to this problem so that there wouldn't be a civil war. And this has been proven by the judicial process. Is it true or not that there are people who have been evading the judicial process?
Yeah, just one or two more. You said many times Thailand is back, and you said in your remarks also many times, I think, you don't like this sick man of Asia term that has been used. Yeah. And so question is about the economy. You laid out many measures in your speech, and you have done before. But as Thailand comes back, what you have a lower GDP, you mentioned falling exports. What's the one key wish you would have for the next year or 2 years of all the things you said to help in the rebound that you want to lead in Thailand? What's the most important thing?
สิ่งที่สำคัญที่สุดของประเทศไทยเหรอ
What is most important for Thailand is taking care of our agricultural entrepreneurs, our farmers. Because we have some 30 million people who are working in the agricultural sector.
มีรายได้ไม่เพียงพอต่อต้นทุนการผลิต ใช่ไหม
Often are not enough to cover their costs of production. Meanwhile, they also have to deal with falling prices on the world market. And this focus of our efforts in order to create equality and justice in society. In the agricultural sector, the futures market is often challenged.
ซื้อราคาต่ำและมีการค้าขายล่วงหน้าที่โน่นเมื่อซื้อราคาแพงไปแล้ว
Because prices are challenged.
People bet on the futures market, and this affects the current value of agricultural produce. This is the impact of inequality and injustice. This is something that the government has to solve. We have to solve problems to create fair economic distribution, to reduce disparities, and to make sure that there is a place for people to live in, so that there is enough for people's livelihood and for their quality of a life. And we're using technology and innovation like big data to solve these problems. We also have our welfare cards for those who have a low income to assist them in welfare, to ensure that they have the consumer products that are necessary for their living. This is preparing people for entry.
คนยากจนทำยังไงการฝึกอาชีพจะทำยังไง การเปลี่ยนแปลงอาชีพจากทำนาเป็นอย่างอื่นได้
How do we take care of the transition of professions from agriculture to industrial? How do we take care of the impacts on the agricultural sector from environmental problems? These are all problems that the government are aiming to solve.
ทุนมีทุนมีการประกอบการ
There are funds. If there are good methods and if there are expertise, then they can be economically competitive. And they'll be able to handle these problems. Thai people have to learn to make use of technology and to make use of the digital sphere and to make use of social media. There are both challenges and opportunities. For instance, you can manipulate people to hate others. You can manipulate people to support others. It's an extremely dangerous device, but it's a device with many opportunities and benefits. You can use it for e-commerce.
Google เปิดจากไอ้เนี่ยผมอยากรู้เรื่องอะไรอยากรู้เรื่องท่านผมกดชื่อท่านเข้าไป
Immense resource of data and information. If I wanted to know who you were, then I'd put your name into Google. If I wanted to know who Daniel Russell was, then I put his name into Google. If I wanted to know about growing plants, then I'd be able to learn in depth about those. So we have to have an inquisitive mind in the use of technology. There has to be the use of technology for learning, not the use of technology for purely entertainment or for brewing conflict between different groups. For instance, if a dog bites someone, that won't be famous, but if a person bites a dog, then that will be famous. This is the nature of social media. It's to do with attracting people's interests.
So we've reached the moment in the program, Prime Minister, where various members of your delegation are going like this,
Okay.
which needs no translation.
No.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you to the delegation. Thank you, Prime Minister. ขอบคุณมากครับ
ขอบคุณครับ